Please welcome Senior Director, Americas, Strategic Partnerships, Tealium, Travis Cameron, and Chief Product Officer and Head of Innovation, Catalina, Kevin Hunter.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us, and Kevin, thank you very much for being here with us today. First off, just want to start and say, how many people have worked with Catalina in the past, utilized Catalina data, or at least heard the name? A couple hands? All right. Well, Kevin's been part of Catalina for about 18 months, and he's been brought on to really revolutionize the company and bring them into the age of data as we all sit in today. So Kevin, love a little bit of history on Catalina. And
absolutely.
Bring everyone up to speed.
Yeah, I bet I can get your hands a little higher. If I explain Catalina, I bet you have used our product or seen our product. We're a company that's been around for about 30 to 35 years. And so how many people have been to the grocery store, put in your loyalty reward card number, and you got printed coupons at the grocery store? A little higher, quite a few more, right? That's Catalina, right? And we've been around a long time. And the reason why we're here today is because we're a lot more than just printing coupons inside of the store. And we're actually revolutionizing how things can happen with regards to the in-store and the online world, especially with the data sets that we have in our infrastructure and the ability to leverage them in near real time.
So I think let's go a little bit deeper into those data sets. I mean, I think you have a lot of unique partnerships. You have just the massive amounts of data. Specifically, I think just a couple to call out, 650 million buyer IDs. Can you explain to where are you getting all this data from?
Well, the reason I love this slide, because this is actually the reason I went to Catalina. This is opportunity, right? If you look at the scale of the data that we have in our overall system from a global perspective, and so you guys know we're in Europe, we're in Asia, we're in the US, but we have 650 million buyer IDs. And that means that we see IDs that come through at a purchase level detail inside of our system. Additionally, we have created about $7.9 billion of value to buyers. Think of shoppers who buy, right? That's the value we've created in the promotional content. Also, we have seen in our systems over $605 billion observed through our overall systems. So we see a lot of data. The kind of data that we see that comes through that we act upon is around purchase level transaction detail with our retail partners. And we package that up for our brand partners to be able to take advantage of so they can reach customers inside of the store or digitally as well.
So I think that massive amount of data, you're obviously going to need a large amount of staff. One of the pieces I want to call it 125 data scientists. Where are you finding all these people? I think that's an obstacle for a lot of us here in this crowd of just where do those people come from with that expertise set?
That's a great question. We've been looking at across the country, across the world, of where we can find good data scientists. And one of the places we found that is actually in Atlanta. We're very close to Georgia Tech. We actually have a data science center of excellence there. And we've been hiring very aggressively inside of the Atlanta market. And we just found tremendous talent. And we've been growing our data science organization. In fact, we brought in a new chief data analytics officer about 18 months ago, about the same time I came in. And he's from Turner, and he brought in a wealth of knowledge to actually help us transform our business.
Amazing. I think that's probably really exciting for some of our Southeast reps to hear about what's going on down there. Just one other kind of point to question you about here. I mean, guaranteed results when it comes to higher impact. How do you get there, and is it based on the data that you know today?
Yeah, it's based on the data we know today and also the future data that we're going to get as well. And so the reason we can actually guarantee some of our programs is because we have actually around 3 years of shopper data at an ID level readily available to act upon from a personalization and leveraging AI and ML. We can guarantee a lot of the results in our campaigns. So that's one of the reasons why our brand partners go with us, is because we provide them the guaranteed results because we've been doing this for 35 years, been looking at the data, we have the science behind it, and it's driving a lot of value for our customers.
So with the 3 years of data, 35 years, over the time that you've been collecting it, obviously there is a change going on today, right? Yes. Millennials are kind of changing the way that a lot of us buy or that they buy, and how you all in this room are then affected by their decision making. So can you highlight how industry is, or how you're adjusting the view that you have on people, and then the impact to some of the retailers, CPG companies, consumers that are out there?
Yeah, no doubt the millennials are definitely changing the overall buyer behavior. And Catalina is more than just the in-store coupon folks. We have been actually have a digital advertising business that we've been actually operating and generating a significant amount of impressions and value for our customers. And that helps us to actually reach that generational change. And what we're seeing with the millennial group as well is that they are obviously not as brand loyal. They will flip brands very often. And they also prefer private label brands as well. So all our data is showing us that. I think the other interesting piece on this slide is that about 99.3% of in-store products are ignored by buyers. How do we know this? Because we can see what they're buying, what's on the shelves, what's there, and what's not moving. Why this is important to us is because our brand partners want to be able to influence both in-store and online, right, that shopping behavior to turn those shoppers into buyers. And so we're helping them be able to engage those shoppers on both sides of that equation with the data that we have.
So I think just down the route of turning shoppers into buyers, right? And I think the point you have at the top of no two buyers are alike. An obstacle that many people in this crowd face is how do you find enough like people together to make that campaign make sense, right? To have a creative or messaging that applies to that person or people together.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point. Is that in our data, no two buyers are alike for sure. They are not buying the same products. They are not buying at the same time. They're not buying at the same stores. And we're able to actually analyze all that. And we start to look across, obviously, demographics and predictive behavior around lifestyle changes. We can start to group these into segments and help our brand partners understand changes that are happening. They can understand the context of seasonality, for example. Maybe it's flu season, maybe it's allergy season. And so we can start to take all this additional data that we have, either be environmental context or be it with lifestyle changes or where they change their buying behaviors, or even dietary preferences. And this is an interesting one. How does Catalina know about dietary preferences beyond just the product SKUs that we see in the transaction data? One of the partnerships we have is with a company that actually has ingredient level information, right? So if you think about all the ingredients that are on the back, we have a company that we've ingested their data and we can apply that to the product SKUs. And we can actually see potential trends associated with what people are buying. For example, maybe someone has changed lifestyles and now they're a vegan, right? Or maybe they're very much focused on non-GMO stuff, or they're focused on gluten-free components. We can see in the ingredient level the buying behavior changes, and so we can incorporate that back into our data for our partners.
It's amazing, and massive amounts of data that you have access to as well. I mean, you can tell if people are trying out a gluten-free diet and then revolving back, right? And how long that takes.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, that is monumental onto itself, but I think the other aspect of that is how do you resolve that is the same person across multiple devices, multiple experiences, multiple stores where you're getting data from?
Yeah, and we'll go into this in a second, but one of the things we've built is an ID graph, right? And we're able to actually map from a frequent shopper card ID all the way out to the digital ID. And we've been working with Tealium to help us, especially on the digital side, to make sure that map's there and understand the exposures, how they associate back into the purchases that happen. And I'm going to stress this in near real time. And the reason why that's important is because we built the infrastructure around the data that we see that comes through our systems that we can just not see but act upon to be able to actually provide measurement against some of those data sets that we get from Tealium. So.
Yep. And I think we're going to go into how that householding works a little bit, right? Specifically in your system. But I think just to take a step back there, just areas that you're gathering data from right now. Can you give the crowd just a highlight of how many data sources are involved in that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that obviously we see the point of sale data, but one of the other aspects of being able to actually enhance that overall graph and understanding is bringing in the media consumption data from other channels as well, right? And obviously from the digital side, be it on desktop, be it in mobile, be it with email or other CRM type data, we continue to enhance that with our partners. And in fact, a lot of our brand partners bring that data to us, and then we overlap that inside of our systems, and we produce segments and provide measurement against it. And so what's important here is that we reach across the in-store side as well as the digital side, and that ID map provides that bridge. In fact, I've been trying to bridge the physical and digital world in many ways my entire career, but what we're doing is we're actually providing that at a one-to-one deterministic level. So what's cool about this is that we know that there may be multiple households that have many frequent shopper card IDs across many different retailers. But if you can understand at a household level, right, those frequent shopper cards and how they roll up, and then at a household level, understand how that translates into all the different devices we have. Think about the iPads, the iPhones, the computers and all inside your house. If we can look at that through a household lens, which is where we know our brand partners want to buy, we can help provide them lift and understanding of that household. And then we can map that all the way back on exposures, for example, that may happen on the digital side, to all those purchases on the in-store side. In fact, Tealium's been helping us with that with our multi-touch attribution product, where we're actually able to understand those exposures and those transactions in near real time and providing optimizations and efficiency to our partners. And this is an example that you can see on the screen here, is that we can take in multiple types of data sets from our retail partners under a trusted environment. And I thought it was very interesting because it is a trusted consent-based environment that we bring in. And it is also a PII-free environment that we use as well. So it makes it very good for us, especially with all the new legislation that's coming, and allows us to actually take that data and make it available in other ways because we can remove the PII. We also use a couple partners involved in this as well. And we're going to get into a little partner stuff, but I think the partners is very important to actually innovate and actually go fast to market. And this is an opportunity that we did on the ID map to do that.
Excellent. And so just on that ID map, and we talked about one-to-one, we talked about how you're building out those household ID graphs, and then you're translating it so you can actually serve media against it. Everyone in this room, I'm sure, has some sort of identity resolution project going on. Any tips for the crowd, or any kind of first steps to take to make sure that that they are successful, or that they are able to build it out and expand on it from what you've seen?
Yeah, we first started with our use cases for what we want to do with it, right?
Yep.
I'm a product guy, that's what I do. I look at the use case and work my way back. And so we came up with obviously 4, but many more. These are the 4 key ones where we can do the audience match. Again, deterministically audience match between our IDs on the in-store side and on the digital side. And then we leverage that 3 years of purchase history data to do that against that graph. So if we look back at how those IDs potentially change and the behaviors associated with that, we can incorporate that data back into our systems to make sure that we can personalize on that the right way. Obviously, making sure that you match and that the graph is solid and consistent, right? And it represents truly what you believe it represents is an important one. And that's one of the things when we match that, we test that, right? And so that's a key component. The other side of this is that it says one-to-one ad serving, but it's more than ad serving just on the digital side that we mostly think about today. It's also on the in-store media side as well. And it's making sure that you get the right content to the right customer. The cool thing about this is that you can start to understand in kind of an orchestrated and coordinated fashion on how media can work together across this divide. And it provides some benefits to the overall brands and partners as well. And with that one-to-one deterministic matching that we do, obviously closed loop measurement is a key component of that.
Yep.
Because if you can understand the efficacy of the overall media spend and how it's translating into true purchases on the in-store side, right, that's a great thing. And that's one of the things on our MTA product that is Tealium's been helping us with on the Pixel side.
And I think that's when I work across our partner network and with a lot of our agencies and consultancy partners, I think that's always or has in the past been a sore point, right? They don't know how to fully attribute some things back. So that's why I think that this is truly revolutionary of what you're doing here. But through this development cycle, with any new product development, as we know here very well at Tealium, there's going to be some hiccups along the way. So are you able to share 1 or 2 things that you and the team have had to either rethink or overcome along the process?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if Catalina's gone through a major transformation. Obviously, we were the in-store coupon guys for a very long time, and we've been transforming our business. And over the last 18 to 24 months, we've accelerated that. So for us, the hiccups were making sure that we could transform and evolve our culture to keep up with the market, to provide the value that we know that you guys are demanding. And so that was one of the key first components, is making sure the culture supported the speed of innovation that we wanted to drive. And at that point, we continued to innovate, iterate, and learn, and then we applied all that back. And obviously, like you said, there's hiccups, but that's kind of the fun part. You work through those and you move forward and you bring products to market.
So I think there's a really interesting point there just around digital transformation and how you're enabling it at Catalina. So I think you said it's the top down of saying we're going to instill this culture because, as we all know from a stats perspective, 80% of digital transformations or more are failing today. So if you could give one tip to the crowd just around how to instill that culture within your organization, or how you've done it, knowing that you're now the chief product officer. When we originally started working together a year ago, you were the VP of product. So I think it's you yourself have seen the progression. Your teams have grown. How do you make sure that you're maintaining the culture during that?
Yeah, it's a really great point, is that we continue to give a reason to believe, right? And we put passion behind it. And we did small iterations along the way. We made sure that everyone understood that innovation doesn't have to be a rocket ship to the moon. It can be small little changes along the way, and everyone can participate. When you got the organization participating at all levels, and it can be small pricing changes or business model changes or the way we market or package something, or actually it could truly be a rocket ship to Mars, right? It could be the engineering and product teams working on that. But when everyone participates, and they come together and they feel like they're part of something, that's when things start to move and start to change.
Awesome. And with that movement and change, can you share maybe 1 or 2 successes that you've had with clients as you're bringing this to market?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of touched on this about in an orchestrated and coordinated fashion because of that ID map and that one-to-one deterministic. When we can look at segments that cut across the in-store side and the digital side, and again, omni means a lot of things to a lot of people. It's way overused, but for us, what it means is our ability to coordinate and orchestrate across that map from a media and a content standpoint. And what we can do is we can make sure that we can be very efficient. For example, if something happens on the digital side, right, and we may actually suppress something on the in-store side because you're getting the most out of the media. Or if someone purchases, we may suppress the digital side. Because it's coordinated and we know that, and we can look back, we can start to do anti-targeting or targeting of the segments differently based on the omni side. But this case study right here is a great example, is that when you look broader than just sometimes the in-store side, and you include an omni campaign, is what we call it, across both the digital and in-store side in a coordinated fashion, we actually get a lift, right? And in
surprising.
Fact, yeah, right. And again, we measure things at the household level because that's where the incrementality comes from for our brand partners. That's where the value is, and we can see a significant lift. And this isn't just one example of a case study, but we see this over and over again, that we do get lift when we coordinate those across, and especially when it's in the personalized and the right point in time across the media, that's where we see the best reaction on it.
And so to achieve this, I know you bring in all the different data sources. On the previous slide, we had highlighted, there was different data providers, whether that's partner, whether that's Catalina, whether that's some retail data. Let's talk about how you select the right partners to be part of this new stack that you're building.
Yep, that's a great question. Because at Catalina, we know what we're really good at. We've been around a long time. We know what we're good at. We know we're transforming and what we're good at as well. We also know what we're okay at and not so good at, right? And so we invest in our own assets, right? And we're in the core value proposition. And we know there are partners out there that have key technologies and platforms that we can leverage that improve our go-to-market and our time to market as well. Obviously, Tealium's one of that we've been working with you guys on for a while. LiveRamp's worked with us on the identity resolution side. This is the one I mentioned on the attribute side for the ingredients.
To know that I'm gluten intolerant here.
Or you, yeah, exactly. Or you've tried a new diet and you decided to switch back. But the label insight partnership as well. That's data they have at the ingredient level per product, and we incorporate that in. And then obviously our network's not across the entire U.S. There are gaps in there, and so we look at all outlet data associated with that as well. And for example, Numerator helps us bridge that gap in that view, and we bring in that data and then we model it out so we can see the rest of the market outside of our network.
Excellent. So I think everyone in the crowd is going to be most interested on how you're utilizing Tealium for this cross-device engagement. So I've convinced Kevin to share a little bit of their architecture with us here today. So would you mind giving us kind of a quick walkthrough of how we're incorporated into your creator stack?
Yeah, absolutely. And he did have to convince me a little bit, but we built some architecture around it. But nonetheless, is that we use Tealium and they help us tag and pixel digital media. And what that helps us do is that helps us bridge back campaigns that we're running or our brands or agencies are running, and we have product SKUs associated with that. And so this helps feed our MTA product, so this is one use case. Obviously, for any media that's ran on the digital side through the DSP, either we're running it as a managed service or our agency partners are running it as well. And that will be attached, basically, the tag or the pixels.
Yep.
At that point, obviously, in the SSP, there's inventory, and that gets all served up, and then it all fires off, and then it gets caught by Tealium, right? And Tealium helps us filter through a massive amount of data, and then provides that pipelining into our system. Obviously, our marketing platform starts to incorporate that in. As you can see, it comes through our shared services. We pump it down to our DMP, right? And obviously, we have to go through the identity resolution, the ID graph. Yep. And at that point, we basically start to listen for the exposures on that ID for that product, right? On the in-store queues and see if there are purchases that happen. And when a purchase happens, there's an attribution event that is basically set into the system, and then we start to look at the different algorithms associated with the attribution and how the media was basically associated with actually influencing that.
So then you can provide that exact report back to the brand to say, this person purchased, this person did not, this is how effective we are.
Yeah, so we roll that up and we provide them to understand how the effectiveness of that is. And because we can do this in relatively near real time, we're able to give that data back to the brands so they can make in-flight optimizations, right? And I think what's important in the market today is that most of this has been around post-campaign, like 6 to 8 weeks post-campaign. It's been moving forward in some in-flight, right? But not at the speed that we're able to give it to them. And so since we're able to give it much faster, you can start to optimize and change the campaigns to get the most effectiveness out of it. And from that standpoint, we hope that the media side of the spend will be much more efficient.
And I think coming from the agency side myself before joining Tealium, that was always one of the major pain points, right? You're waiting 4, 6, 8 weeks before you can actually look and say, how much product did I sell? I don't even know what's moving off of shelf because I don't have that deals with the retailers from a data perspective. So I think it's a very unique proposition that you guys are bringing.
Yeah, we agree as well. And you could maybe track it back to a creative, right, in the channel, right? Or you could say that channel's, maybe over-indexing for, certain type of buyers or certain type of, new to brand potentially or new to category, and others are influenced more over here. So you can start to shift your dollars based on where you see the attribution taking place, and at that point you can start to optimize.
Yeah. So I know we've said massive amounts of data a couple times, and I think all brands in this room deal with lots of data, right? But in terms of how much Catalina has flowing through this system on a day-to-day basis, can you give the crowd just a number in terms of terabytes that we're looking at?
I mean, more than a lot. So on the in-store and digital side, I don't have the terabyte number for you.
Okay.
I just know that it's relatively expensive. So
the infrastructure costs alone, right?
It really is, because we're moving a lot of data, and we're keeping the data inside the environment that allow us to access it very quickly, so we can start to either run it through our systems for personalization or start to do the attribution type events and closed loop measurement that demands from our partners.
Excellent. So along with this, I think there's a question that everyone in this room has probably had at a point in time of, you obviously have extensive capabilities from an engineering perspective, right? Of we can build, or we are building this system. How do you make the decision between what to build and what to buy, and when to bring in a partner like Tealium to help along the way?
Yeah, it's expertise, right? And making sure you can identify the expertise that you need in the market. Do you have it in-house? Is there a partner that can provide that? Again, back to the time to market and the overall cost and the value of money, right? Got to look at that component as well. What's the investment
cost, right?
Exactly, right? And so that's one of the things that we do from evaluation when we bring in new partners.
Excellent. Any tips for folks in the room of just like what is or where to start when you're going through that evaluation process, and how to maybe evaluate some of your internal teams, knowing yours has been growing, you've been hiring people out. Mm-hmm. What is one takeaway that you might have for the crowd around how to evaluate that build versus buy decision?
Yeah, know what you're good at, right? Know what your core value proposition is, start there.
Yep.
Right? Because everything spreads out from there.
Excellent. So I think one of the pieces here, as you're saying, constantly talking about real time, near real time, from an architecture perspective. And since you've joined about 18 months ago, I know Catalina at that point had about 2 products.
Yeah.
With the expansion of data, with what you've built today, how has that expanded out that real-time mandate or real-time access to data?
Yeah, in fact, that's where we put a lot of the investment. Because over 35 years, you can imagine the different systems that we had in place and the way we move data into our systems, we could act upon it. So we made some investments over the last couple of years that allow us to actually put more real-time based systems in place so we can do more and start to be more relevant in the overall market across both the in-store and digital side. If we looked at this probably like 2 years ago, you may see that you have probably CPG content and maybe the inlane printers and probably some digital and mobile, because we've had that products around for a while. But we've been expanding out our capabilities, our systems, as well as our content and our channels that we play in, right? And the reason we've done this is because we've made investments in our overall infrastructure that allows us to go faster and innovate much quicker, bring those things to market, try them out. If they sometimes don't work, stop them, try new things, and then also put APIs around the entire system. And again, from the partnership standpoint, that's key, because if we're not wrapping this with the right API sets, we can't bring in someone else's value proposition with our value proposition. I know it's a cliche, but the 1 + 1 = 3 model, right? That's very true, because if we wouldn't bring in partners like yourself, we wouldn't be able to go to market as fast as we have in certain products, and also we wouldn't be able to put the right value proposition together. But this has been an evolution for us and a transformation. We've been evolving the entire company, and it goes back to that evolving the culture, evolving the thinking, right? And when you have everyone on board, the speed and the velocity is pretty incredible, given digital velocity.
So the idea of 1 + 1 = 3. So as brands, are excited by this, and they want to work with it, and utilize the Tealium aspect of this as well, what would be kind of the process to get engaged on this, or to leverage maybe some of the first party data that they have to improve the system?
Absolutely. So, we have many programs already that are available. We operate these day in and day out. So there's very easy to work with our sales or ops or other teams that come in and work with us. And then obviously, if we want to bring in additional data, we have other solutions to be able to bring that in as well. Like Insight Booster, the ability to bring in incremental CRM or data and map that into ours, and so we can work together on targeting as well as personalization and measurement. And then obviously we're always evolving our platform, and so from an innovation standpoint, we love We love the brands and the partners who are willing to innovate with us. Because I think that moves the needle, just not for us in the market, but for the entire market. And those are the kind of people that I love to interact with on a daily basis. You know, I'm a product guy.
Yep.
But that's one of the ways that we can actually change the entire market together.
Awesome. So today, or 18 months ago, two and a half products. Today, the lucky number 13. What's next? I mean, you can't stay on that number, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we take an example for what we're doing with Tealium, we're going to continue to leverage you guys across many of our different products. You know, we have our ID map, and we're doing cross-channel coordination with that, especially on the digital side. You know, incorporating our multi-touch attribution. We have our Hub 360, which is our brand portal today, and we're incorporating more digital data that comes through our Tealium partnership. And that allows our brand partners to start to get this data in near real time so they can make decisions against it. You know, again, it goes back to that thing about transparency. We want to be more transparent with regards to how campaigns are running, both on the digital and store sides, so we can make them better at the end of the day. And we'll continue to evolve our digital and advertising and programmatic lines as well. And obviously, there are new channels and new devices coming all the time. And so you may see us on the connected home side at some point, or on the voice assistant type side. So.
And just shameless plug for Tealium. I mean, I think we have the most extensive data collection capabilities to help with you along that path. And I think one question that we had chatted about earlier before coming on stage was, 5 years down the line, where do you think Catalina is going to be? Obviously, we just kind of mentioned connected home maybe, but looking inside of your crystal ball, where does that take you?
Yeah, I'd say that's a great question. If I had that 5-year crystal ball, I'd make some probably other bets as well. But for Catalina, we know our value, and we've had that value for 35 years. It starts with the data. It starts with the relationships and the trust that we built with the retailers. We'll probably continue to evolve out in adjacent retail markets and segments because we've proven our trust over 35 years with that. We're good stewards of the data that we get. We treat it with the utmost respect and with the utmost privacy. And we'll continue to evolve as channels start to evolve out there, and we'll continue to provide products against it.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you.